Yo, what's going on everyone? This is a beginner's guide on understanding how to color grade. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to open the colors tab. So you're going to go to Windows, Workspace, and Color. And the hotkey to that is Alt-Shift-5. So you're going to want to click on that. And then to the right of your screen, there's going to be a couple of things that come up. First thing is basic correction, creative, curves, color wheels that match, HSL secondary, and vignette. So once you have your colors tab open, you're going to see to the left of your screen next to the effects controls, you're going to see Lumetri Scopes. And if you don't see that, you're going to go back to the Windows tab, go down until you see Lumetri Scopes, and you're going to click on that, and then it should appear. What I like to look at when it comes to Lumetri Scopes is I like to look at the Vectorscope over here and then the Luma Waveform. And to pull those up, you're gonna go into the wrench icon right over here, and then you're gonna check Vectorscope UV and then Waveform Luma. That's what I like to use when it comes to color grading. When I color grade, I like to look at the waveform when it comes to understanding how dark I'm making an image or how bright I'm making an image. Okay, so I like adding an adjustment layer because first off, to access the adjustment layer, you're gonna go down to the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, click on new item. This is where you'll find adjustment layer, and then it's going to ask if this is the right size that you want to make it for your sequence, and then it'll appear in your bin, and then after that, you'll be able to drag it onto your timeline. Once you have an adjustment layer, you can adjust multiple clips at once. Since this is your layer right up here and it will be above all your clips, you can adjust multiple clips at once instead of just copy and pasting, a certain color grade for this clip. And you can just, it's a lot more easier. That's not well said. You can drag and slide your adjustment layer to certain clips that you want to add your coloring to instead of just copy and pasting each color grade that you added to your clip to the next, and it makes the whole process a lot more faster and easier. Once I had my adjustment layer, you can see that this clip right here, it's not overexposed, which is overexposure would be over 100. As you can see, if I turn up the exposure, it becomes way too bright and we don't like that. And now if the zero indicates complete dark, like complete black. So if I turn the exposure all the way down, maybe turn down the shadows, maybe even turn up the contrast, 0, complete black. So when I'm color grading, I like to look at the waveform and I like to look at the Vectorscope. Now the waveform, the video is horrible. You want to make sure that your footage, for one, is not looking like this. You want to make sure that when you're filming, nothing is overexposed. Now over here to the Vectorscope, this is when you would mainly be looking at this for when you're actually doing the coloring part. This line right here is very important for when it comes to color grading your skin tones. You want to make sure that depending on the type of skin tone that you're coloring, that it matches up with this line. The higher up this image goes, that means the more saturation you're adding to your footage. So for an example, the more saturation I add, the more it expands. And now whenever you add color, your line will go in that direction. So it's basically showing you the color that's being added or shown in the image. And this is how I color grade. So I first like to look at the image, and I like to, this is a very flat image. I shot it in S-Log. And what I like to do first is I like to, if you're not adding in a Rec 709 LUT, which is basically going to be the shortcut to what I'm about to do, what you're going to do is you want to expand your waveform. You're going to add some contrast. You can add in some shadows. You can add some exposure to it. It's gonna be different every time depending on what type of footage that you're editing. So if you're editing footage from inside, it's gonna be completely different with how you work this waveform compared to if you're editing footage from outside. Once I do that, I like to go down to my curves. So the curves, how to read that is, it's kind of the same thing as the waveform in a way. Down here is complete black, and up here is all your, like, the exposure and how bright something can be. And what I like to do is I like to add 2 points. I'm gonna add one in the shadow area. How I like to see it is this is 0, this is complete black. This is kind of like my shadows right over here. This is my midtones. This is my highlights. And then this is kind of like the overall exposure. That's how I like to look at it. So I'm gonna add in a dot for my shadows, and I'm gonna add in another dot for my highlights. And now what I like to do and what I've learned over time is I like to add in a cool S curve. And I feel like the S curve kind of balances out how much you're really adding to your shadows and your highlights. So for an example, in my shadows, I'm going to just bring this down just a tad. And as you can see my waveform, you can see that it's going down, which is okay. And then in my highlights, I'm gonna bring this up just a tad. I don't want it to be super exposed. And now, one rule that I like to go with is I wanna make sure that my exposure doesn't go over 90. Look at it like this, 100, overexposed, way too bright. You don't want that. 90 is like, keep it below 90 because 90 is right below it being exposed, like overexposed. And I kind of want to not make the image too bright, but I want to make it bright enough. So I like to keep it like no higher than 80. And again, it really all depends on the type of footage that you're working on. It's a little above 80, which is, it's not what I would want to go for because it's a little too bright. So yeah, I'm going to also add in a little bit of a warmer temperature, and you'll see in the Vectorscope me adding in that warmer temperature right over here. It's kind of going with the line. So first you're going to click on your clip, come over to the effects tab. You're going to go over to the ellipse mask. We're going to place it over your subject. I'm going to hold down shift and then scale down the mask so it scales down evenly. I'm going to put it over my subject and then open up the Lumetri Scopes again. And then you'll see that it's only showing me what is being shown on the screen. This line, so right here you can see that it's not really lined up with the line and it's very small. So that means that little saturation is added to the video and it's a little off from the skin tone line that I want it to be on. So let's fix that. Okay, so first what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some saturation so then the line can expand just a bit. I'm waiting for it to load. Okay, and as you can see, when I added in saturation, the skin tone line expanded, which is what I want. And when you're editing your skin tones, you don't want this to be, the coloring to expand the outer ring, because that's when you know you're adding in way too much saturation. I like to keep it right in the middle, just to find, and then I'll adjust it depending on the subject and their skin color and their skin tone. I like to adjust the line accordingly. They said, honestly, this is okay. This is cool. So yeah, I mean, that's the basics of how to color grade or understanding how to color grade. If you want a more in-depth video on how to get specific colors into your videos, let me know in the comments. And other than that, I hope you guys learned something. And until next time, I'll see you guys there. Or I'll see you guys then. Peace.